And we're back with our distinguished panel. And I want to throw this hat in the ring, kids, because, here we are with a budget shortage. And now the Senate president says that too many questions on the November ballot could end up costing the state of Oklahoma another $650,000 so they can print a second ballot to go with the first ballot. And what's happening here is lawmakers, when they don't want to take on something, are saying, well, let's put it to a vote of the people. Let's make it a state question. Shouldn't that be stopped some way?
Well,
Isn't that what they're there for?
There are some initiative petitions that are trying to get on the ballot that aren't generated from the legislature, like David Boren's 1 penny sales tax increase.
And then Chris Steele, criminal justice.
Right, and there's also a anti-abortion initiative petition. The question, the big problem I have with the big ballot is it's confusing to the voters. I mean, people don't investigate to how they vote enough as it is. But if you have a long ballot, people get in. I've had people call me on their cell phone from the ballot box. I mean, from their voting place, and say, "I'm in here looking at this, and what should I vote?
What is this?"
Yeah, and I said, "Well, I think we're breaking a federal law, but let me go ahead and tell you what I think."
Charlie.
I think we elect politicians to decide for us in some of these cases, and it is a sign that maybe they're not dealing with the issues. I know that the Chris Steele-led group that wants to put a criminal justice reform bill on the ballot, that's a law that we actually have already passed several years ago and never funded to sort of get lower level offenders out of our prisons. So
does that amend the Constitution?
I'm not quite certain the actual legalities of it. I know that it's going to create sort of a system where lower level offenders can be treated or placed in lower security settings and save us money for prisons.
Correct me if I'm wrong here. Can't the members of the legislature, on their own initiative, amend the Constitution or change it?
No, it takes a vote of the people, I think, to amend the Constitution.
So then that brings us to the Ten Commandment issue that they're wanting to put back on the Capitol grounds.
They want to repeal that amendment that would open up the door to the Ten Commandments monument.
Yeah, so they'd have to really word it carefully to keep, an amendment to, I don't know, or a statue to Satan or something.
The spaghetti monster.
Yeah. Elmo. I want Elmo on the grounds. The Senate has passed a measure to bring us into compliance with the Federal Real ID Act, and yet it's a cop-out. Rather than say, okay, children, we're all going to have the same ID, and if you want to travel, you're going to have to get a passport, or if you want to go in the federal building, you're going to have to get a passport. And to get a passport, the privacy issue is much more intrusive for a passport than it is for the Real ID. Why didn't they just say, okay, we're going to make the change and move on to something that demands more of their attention?
I think the biometrics is the aspect of this. That, Tom Coburn actually came out and voted for Oklahoma. He wanted Oklahoma to adopt the Real ID while he was still in office in the Senate. But I think there's a lot of people who have concerns. There's over 50 states that have, over 25 states that have not gone along with this, and they've granted a lot of exemptions because people are concerned. I think the big concern is the biometrics.
Well, even so, Charlie, if they're going to have to get on an airplane, they're going to have a passport to do it, and again, that's much more intrusive. Yeah,
well, maybe not. They've had a delay after delay after delay, and I tell you, if people start not being able to get on airplanes, something's going to break one way or the other politically.
That's when you're going to hear a great hue and cry. But I mean, I think it looks inevitable that we have to follow the law and get this done. It seems kind of, I agree with you, kind of academic.
It just seems like, it's a no-brainer. A couple of our finest have filed legislation now to do away with daylight savings time. And what's interesting about that is if we do away with it, and I know that there are folks watching that say, yeah, let's do away with it. I know, I can hear the phone call. But if we do that, then we would be surrounded by states that don't agree. And that means every time we cross a border, then we'd have to reset our watches. And there are folks out there who say, well, I don't go nowhere. That may be true, but there are those of us who do. And to get it from one point to another point, to go from Tulsa to Wichita Falls,
yeah.
you got to change your watch over and then change it back when you come back. And along comes Sally Kerr. God love her. She's given us so many wonderful quotes in the past, and she says she's against making the change because it could impact golf courses. Oh, right out of the park on that one.
Well, my kids, they would like to keep it in the fall and get rid of it in the spring.
Just
That's
do it one
funny.
time.
They
That's
do it one
funny.
time,
Just one time.
We get progressively later during the day,
Yeah,
but
you said your dog would like it.
and my dog, yeah, she would like that too.
I kind of, I kind of like it. I'm comfortable with it. We've been doing it for so long.
Yeah.
But I think if we're going to do it, the rest of the states ought to do it.
Well, Arizona's not on it, right? Aren't they?
Right, Arizona's
and,
not
and
on
I
it.
think it'd be incredibly confusing. I agree with you. I don't understand the need. I think if it's going to happen, the whole nation needs to do it. It would just be too confusing. Not only do you have to account for time zone changes, then you have to figure out are you
Yeah.
on or off daylight.
And pretty soon you're going to, somebody can say, hey, what time is it? And you say, well,
I don't, depends.
where are you from? Because you got to wear two watches. You don't
That's
worry about that.
awesome.
Ordinarily, we stick pretty much to state issues when we do this program. I want to kind of deviate from that a little bit because, in all honesty, never in my lifetime do I recall a presidential election going down the rabbit hole the way this one is. I have never seen grown men on either side of the aisle, or women, behave the way these folk are behaving. Do you guys, have I missed something? Has this always been this way, to this extent?
Yes and no. There's been some pretty horrendous debates, I think, but the level of civility is pretty low in this one. And it's funny because people used to call Ronald Reagan the Teflon president. Remember that? Well, I think Donald Trump is a Teflon candidate because he can say anything, and he gains support no matter what he says, which is baffling to Democrats and Republicans because some of the things he says are pretty outrageous.
I totally agree. I think it's just a measure of how frustrated the American people are with Congress, and when a candidate says things like protesters tone out, I'd like to punch that guy in the face, and everybody cheers. It's like, yeah, we have reached a new low.
And then you've got candidates calling one another liars.
Right. Well, that's always that's
And I've never heard it to this extent. I've
Right.
heard it in the past. but
Usually they have surrogates do that. I mean,
Yeah.
seriously. Like, remember Agnew?
I do.
He did that for Nixon.
Yeah, where is he now?
Yeah.
No. Don't go
I
there.
won't speculate.
It just, I had my granddaughter ask me a couple of days ago, because she brought up the issue of Donald Trump wanting to build a wall and have Mexico pay for it. She said, explain to me how that works. She's in high school. And I said, well, it doesn't.
Yeah, that's an amazing thing to me is, he's just saying, we're going to win, and that's his platform. It's like, I'm shocked that people aren't demanding details, but, I do think he has a wide appeal to, obviously, a lot of people, and so.
You see, we're talking about Trump, though. Here we are. That's what he wants.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's what we're
It
doing.
is what he wants, but
Yeah.
he's leading,
And he won the Hispanic vote in Nevada this week,
it's-
after the comments he made, which is incredible to me.
defies
Yeah, and then
explanation.
Ted Cruz, everybody's favorite whipping boy, it seems, comes along courting the evangelicals who turn around and vote for Donald Trump.
Right.
And yet he says he can beat him, and then Trump calls him a liar, and then my head's about to blow up, and I'm going watching the Republican Party. Nobody in the party is happy.
Well,
Yeah.
Cruz and Rubio were both Hispanic, and they're both losing the Hispanic vote.
Amazing. None of this is following the traditional rules of politics, so it'll be very interesting to see how this shakes out, especially in the general election.
And over in the Democratic camp, you got Bernie, and you got Bernie running, and he's a socialist.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, people are following him in droves. You got Hillary Clinton, who, when asked, do you ever lie, does the little Texas two-step instead of an outright answer, when she could have just said one way or the other. I don't understand. My world is suddenly going, wait, whoa.
Well, you have all these young people following the 74-year-old socialist from Vermont, and that's not supposed to happen.
Right. Now, I saw the line at the Tulsa Convention Center last night just for Bernie, just 8 blocks long, filled with 20-something-year-old kids, they're very excited. I guess it's a good thing to see young people involved in the political process.
You bet.
So, you know, do I think he could be elected president? No.
But we said Reagan was too old, remember?
Right.
When he ran. And now Bernie's 74.
Yeah.
He'll be 75 when he takes office.
Well, look what Reagan did for the jelly bean companies, though.
That's true.
Listen, thank you guys. We're out of time again. That's all we have time for this edition. We'll see you back next time. Take care.